The winner is serial number 13066-266, Sergeant Darryl C. Powers. Shifty later remembered Spears announcing the final part of his name in a voice that sounded almost like a radio broadcaster. The captain, whose reputation was built on fearlessness and lethal efficiency in combat, clearly held a special affection for one of the company's most respected men. As the formation broke up, 2 replacement soldiers hurried over and grabbed Shifty by the arm. "I'll give you $1,000 for that trip home," one of them offered immediately. There was no question he meant it. Many soldiers had earned substantial sums through gambling during the war. To a young man like Shifty, $1,000 represented an extraordinary amount of money. Yet he simply replied in his usual calm and courteous manner, "I think I'll just go home." Sergeant Paul Rogers, known to everyone as Hayseed, stepped forward with a smile and shook his hand. He had been one of Shifty's closest friends in the platoon, and Shifty was deeply grateful that Rogers had survived to see the end of the war. "I didn't know what to say except, 'Shoot, Paul. I've never won anything in my life. We all wanted this for you, Shifty,'" Rogers answered. As he spoke, Shifty noticed the same sparkle in his eyes that he had seen earlier in several of the other men. Rogers handed him an empty duffel bag, almost as if he had anticipated this moment. "Come on," he said. "I've got something to show you." Shifty had very little equipment to collect, and few souvenirs from combat. He remembered taking one of the large red Nazi banners with the black swastika when Easy Company moved through Berchtesgaden. He had never known what use he would have for such an ugly banner, but figured it was the sort of thing a country boy from Virginia was unlikely to encounter twice in a lifetime. Rogers led him several streets away to a supply building. A lone guard nodded as they entered. The building had no windows and was completely dark inside. When Rogers flipped on the overhead light, Shifty stopped in amazement. "Now, Shifty," Rogers said, "pick out whatever you want." The room was packed with confiscated German weapons. Guns were stacked in crates, lined on shelves and piled across the floor. Rifles, pistols, carbines, shotguns, and submachine guns filled every available space. A grin immediately spread across Shifty's face. "Figured it would make a fitting going-away present for the best shot in Easy Company," Rogers said, handing him the duffel bag. "You're forgetting Buck Taylor," Shifty replied. "He's a much better shot than I ever was. And Earl McClung, too. He's the best in the company by far." Thinking of marksmanship reminded him of home. "My father could really shoot," he recalled. "Dad was an excellent marksman. Why, that man could shoot the wings off a fly." "Just fill your damn sack, Shifty," Rogers laughed. Shifty decided on pistols because they were easier to carry. He was already planning to take his M1 rifle home and saw no reason to haul another heavy weapon. About 10 or 12 pistols went into the duffel bag. Among them he spotted a matching pair of .25 caliber automatics with pearl handles. Nearby sat 2 shoulder holsters, one designed for each side. He strapped the pearl-handled pistols beneath his uniform jacket and felt as pleased as a boy waiting for one of his mother's homemade chocolate pies, his favorite dessert. "Truck's leaving soon," Rogers reminded him. "Better get moving." They shook hands one final time. There was little opportunity for lengthy farewells. Before departing, however, Shifty wanted answers to a question he felt only Major Winters could address. The Major was staying in officers' quarters several streets away. When Shifty arrived, he found him seated on a balcony outside a drawing room. Sunlight framed Winters, while the room behind him remained in shadow. As Shifty approached, he noticed the Major working at a small desk he had carried outside for paperwork. Major Dick Winters had been there from the very beginning. Back at Camp Toccoa, 3 years earlier, he had been a young second lieutenant responsible for roughly 50 men in Easy Company. He had fought alongside them through Normandy, where he eventually became company commander. He had endured the rain and wind of Holland, the snow and bloodshed of Bastogne, and the shelling and mud of Hagenau. His leadership had not gone unnoticed. Promotion followed promotion. By the time the unit reached Austria, Winters had succeeded Colonel Robert Strayer as battalion commander and was responsible for nearly 700 men. "Don't mean to interrupt you, sir. Just wanted to say goodbye." Winters continued studying the chart before him, finished reading, then stood and acknowledged him. "You know, sir, you was," Shifty began. The words failed him. He tried again. "You was." Still unable to finish the thought, he paused. Somewhere nearby he could hear water flowing through a creek. Well, it's been a long time, he finally managed, though that was far from what he truly wanted to say. The Major placed his pen on the desk. "Got everything you need, Sergeant Powers?" he asked in the same calm, steady voice Shifty had always known. "Yes, sir." Shifty explained that he had gathered his belongings and that he would receive his back pay once his paperwork was completed at headquarters. Winters tilted his head slightly, encouraging him to continue. "Back home in Virginia," he began slowly, "I just don't rightly know how I'm going to explain all this. The things I've done, the things I've seen." He swallowed hard. The Major glanced briefly at the desk before looking directly at him again. "You're a hell of a fine soldier, Shifty. There's nothing you need to explain." Shifty considered those words carefully. His expression hardened with quiet determination. He saluted. Winters returned the salute and then, to Shifty's surprise, extended his hand in friendship. One regret remained. He never got the chance to properly say goodbye to his close friend Earl McClung. In Austria, McClung spent much of his time hunting deer and wild goats in the surrounding hills to provide food for both the company and the prisoners. He was rarely around camp, and the men might see him only once or twice a week. "I'd write him a long letter once I got back stateside," Shifty later said. A truck driver slapped the side of the vehicle. "You the guy from Easy Company? Get in, we gotta move." 3 other soldiers were already riding in the truck. They were lottery winners from Dog, Fox, and Headquarters companies, though Shifty did not know any of them. The truck would take them to headquarters to finish their paperwork. From there, they would continue to the coast and eventually board a ship bound for home. As they traveled along a winding mountain road, a military car followed closely behind them, waiting for a chance to pass. Its horn echoed off the rocky slopes. Shifty looked up and noticed another truck approaching around a bend. It appeared to be drifting across the center line as if the driver was distracted. Moments later, everything happened at once. Shifty was thrown from the truck as the vehicles collided. He landed hard on the road and suffered several serious injuries. Dazed and disoriented, he lay on the pavement hoping the driver behind would see what had happened and stop in time. Then, for a few moments, everything went dark. Consciousness slowly returned. Tires screeched. Gravel sprayed through the air and struck his body like shrapnel. Through blurred vision, he could see the crushed cab of their truck. The other vehicle had slammed into them head-on. Steam and smoke poured upward while the engines of both trucks were crushed together. Shifty tried to sit up and move away, but his injured arm collapsed beneath him. Pain surged through his body, and he squeezed his eyes shut to keep from crying out. A woman in a long gray dress and a hat marked with a small red cross leaned over him. He never knew exactly how much time had passed. The roadside seemed closer now. She was preparing a morphine syringe and getting ready to inject it into his leg. Nearby lay the soldier from Dog Company. His face had lost all color as a medic pulled a blanket over him. The morphine soon took effect. Everything began to swirl. His thoughts drifted home to one of his mother's chocolate pies. The accident kept Shifty moving in and out of military hospitals for nearly a year. After recovering, he returned to Clinchco, Virginia, where he worked as a machinist in the coal industry. He and his wife, Dorothy, raised 2 children, Wayne and Margot. Their son, Wayne, was named after Shifty's friend from Easy Company, Wayne Skinny Sisk. Let me know your thoughts on Shifty Powers, both in the series and his real-life story. If you enjoyed the comic, please hit the like and subscribe.